All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. Very excited to have our special guest on this week and a longtime good friend of mine, Adam Caplan. Adam, welcome to the show.
Doc, good to see you. It's been a while. I'm sure we ran into each other at the Super Bowl, but yeah, it's good to be on your show. And here we are in the middle of OTA season.
Oh, yeah. OTA season, or as I call it, injury revelation season. All the off-season stuff that because there's no injury reporting, all of a sudden, oh, this guy had an e-scope, this guy had this guy had that, or a Joe Burrow update, or first sighting of Tank Dell. I mean, in some ways, OTAs are off-season injury updates because there's no injury reporting. And before we go down that path, I always have to say with Adam, for my viewers and fans, etc., Adams is the OG. He is the original injury guy way back in the day before I even ever entered into this world. Why don't you tell people about that a little bit? I don't think everyone knows that story.
Yeah, so back in 2000, I became a partner in a website called footballinjuries.com with Jay Glazer and a guy named Steve Cohen. And that's when I really started covering injuries from an insider standpoint. This is before you really could get information. There was no ticker. During games, you couldn't see who was hurt. You would have to get information as a reporter. So I'd gather it. I kind of oversaw all of our content from the website and our newsletter. We actually had a 900 number, which was interesting. I became the guy who had to update it, which was never really fun. Back when we had 900 numbers, I guess there still are out there. But anyway.
And fax machines, right?
Fax, yep, you're right. Good call. We had the fax. Man, you got a better memory than I do. Yeah, we had the fax service. We had the 900 number. We had a website. So, yeah, and I was the central. I kind of oversaw all the writers and I handled all the content. So to speed through that, I worked together with those guys for 10 years. We went up selling our company in 2008 to John Hansen, who's a fantasy guy. His company's called fantasypoints.com. I've been a consultant for them for years. And look, injuries are my background. I really learned injuries from team doctors and surgeons and trainers, and it's really interesting. And I've always asked you this question. One thing I can never quite understand is, every team kind of gets similar medical information for the draft, but yet they have a different view of the injury or the risk. I always found that interesting, and how teams could just look at it differently. That's the one thing about what I've done over my career. It's like you could talk to 10 teams about this same exact surgery. The risk level, depending on which team it is, they'll look at it differently. It's kind of interesting. So that's one thing. In 25, this is year 25 for me. It's just I kind of laugh at because teams don't always look at it the same way as other teams do.
Well, I can answer that question for you, Adam. But before you go there, what a unbelievable look! I'm pleased to know you because maybe one day I can have the greatness of a John Hansen or a Jay Glazer or Steve Cohen, right? I mean, all you guys have done extremely well in the world, etc. So to me, the simplest way that I can say it is just like 10 different GMs have a different draft grade on different players. Some are for sure Caleb Williams #1, some are Jaden Daniels, some are Drake May, some are, what is the order? And the raw information that all the doctors look at is absolutely the same. But this is where medicine is also an art rather than just pure science, because you're trying to look into your crystal ball to the future. Like, I think the best example I'll give you, and I think like, for example, in this draft, one of the bigger medical issues was Latu, who the Colts drafted. And we all saw the Chris Ballard, we got the best effing pass rusher in the draft. How did he fall to us? Well, he fell to you because other team doctors said, boy, there is risk. He's already got one strike with the fusion. He's fine today, but what about the next play? And let me tell you something too. You know how some coaches have more sway in who to pick with the GM, and some coaches have very little sway? I'll tell you something. Some doctors have more sway than others, not because they're all powerful, but because the GM takes their stuff into consideration more, right? And I've had different GMs that relied on me in different ways, and I never gave them answers of, you can't draft that guy. I'm just saying, like, what I would have said is, if you like Latu, similar, I forget the second defensive player drafted, I'm blanking on his name now. You'll remember, the Alabama rusher. If you like them both the same, the Alabama guy is a safer pick.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Dallas Turner. If you like Dallas Turner and Latu the same, you need to take Dallas Turner. It's the same that we said at our site, Sports Injury Central, last year. If you like Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson about the same, Will Anderson is your choice as the first defensive player because he doesn't have the foot issue. That's not to say that Tyree Wilson won't get better from his foot issue in his sophomore year and pay more dividends. But if they're the same, you have to go Will Anderson. So I usually try and give my 2 cents. You have to understand, Adam, all the players that are at the comments can play. That's how they got invited there. It's the very unusual one that completely fails the physical. So beauty in the eye of the beholder. For example, it all is in who you need. I'll give you a famous draft pick that we panned. We panned Sony Michel when the Patriots drafted him, saying he's got an arthritic knee. This is going to be a problem. But guess what? Patriots and Bill Belichick were smart. We're still going to take him. In his rookie year, they helped lead him to the Super Bowl, and they won a Super Bowl. Now, he didn't last, and now he's gone to the Rams and other places, but you can't say that was a bad draft pick because that's what they needed to get over the hump. Maybe this is what the Colts need, so I'm not criticizing Chris Ballard. I looked at it as, if you're drafting for the long term and saying the best security over the 5-year span, and I will admit things are different now, Adam. When I was first in the league, people said, will this guy be our left tackle for 10, 12, 15 years? Nobody said that anymore towards the end. Can he do 5 years? That's what they're worried about at the top of the draft. And you'd say maybe, but he's also one play, one hit away, Latu. So if he's a difference maker for this next season and he's better than Dallas Turner, you got to take him. Yep. Now, if you're building for the future, maybe a Dallas Turner is the better selection. So it is very individual, and it's not black and white by any stretch of the imagination.
So let me add something to this. So were you with the Chargers when they drafted Marcus McNeil?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. So I met Marcus, so we could talk about this. So
yes,
I knew everything. I did reporting on this.
Marcus has been on this podcast, and we've talked about the situation, so there's no HIPAA here.
Good. So he has spinal stenosis, right? So I remember reporting that he's probably not going to go in the first round because spinal stenosis is a narrowing of the spine. You know better than I. Obviously, you're a doctor. I'm not, but I know the injury fairly well, or the condition, excuse me. So he's not going to play 10, 12 years. It's, can he get to a second contract? That's when talking to team docs over the years and GMs and so forth, it's always about projection. It's not a question, can the guy play? It's how long can he play? If a player cannot get to the second contract, you're not going to draft him until the 4th or 5th round. If you can get to the second contract, like Gronk, okay, now we're talking. Now we could spend a first or second round pick on Gronk, like the Patriots did. With Marcus, as he told me, he knew that he would not have a very long career. In fact, I think he told me, I think it was 6 years. I think he did say he was told he had a 6-year career, and I think that's kind of what he had. So it's a tough deal, man. And that's what I learned through my question, which I posed earlier, the situation I brought up. And you know this better than everybody. It's about projection. How long can this guy play? And it depends on the condition and the player. J.J., another guy who had bone-on-bone condition. I remember when he dropped to the 5th round, I was like, wow, it never got reported before the draft. Like 10 minutes in, after he got picked, I'm like, okay, what the hell happened here? Texting feverishly every GM or personnel guy I know, oh, he's got an arthritic knee. He's not going to have a long career. I'm like, there you go. And by the way, he didn't have a very long career, but pretty productive when he did play.
No, that's absolutely true. And I always look at what our medical grade was as a 40 time. If you think he's got game speed, I'm just saying he's got a low medical grade. I'm just saying he's got a bad 40 time. But if you say he's got game speed and he's the difference for us, you get the analogy. It's one factor in the overall picture of the team. Now, the Marcus McNeil story was actually funny. I can tell this. I've told it before in the past, but
Okay.
the draft rooms, look, I'm old enough that back when I was in draft rooms and I've been at there were still the magnets, right? The magnet boards. Now it's all computerized. Now your stadium seating, we were still in the big dining room table seating, and with the magnets around the side. It's not the stadium seating that everyone has now. But the head athletic trainer and I were in the room. Look, the OC and DC were not in the room, right? It was the head coach only, player personnel, GM, assistant GM, ownership, some logistics. They were all at the John Spanos, et cetera. They were all at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, the adult table. And James Collins, the head athletic trainer, and I were in the corner at the kids' table, a two-top in the corner. But we were in the room, but we were at the kids' table. Speak when spoken to. Don't dare walk by the main draft board where you can see all the magnets and see what the projected order of our guys are. Don't put yourself in that position. Well, that year, if you remember, Antonio Cromartie was our first-round pick. And we used to get, and God bless AJ Smith, who just passed away last week. He was the GM at the time. And AJ Smith would usually give us about 20 players 25, no more than 30 that he would dot. Like, pay extra special attention to these guys. We looked at all 330 players, but those were the extra special lookovers. And Cromartie did not have a dot. And if I remember correctly, we were sort of middling in the draft. And I think the thought was that he wasn't going to fall to us. He was too talented. So don't waste your time. Well, he kept falling because of the ACL. And as it got closer, AJ Smith would come up to the kids' table and goes, tell me about Cromartie. And we still had paper at the time. So I break out my sheet of paper and tell him what he had, and had an ACL, but I think he's okay. The surgery was done well. He's not there on rehab yet. He might not be his best week one, but somewhere in the middle of the first season, he'll get there. But there's no reason not to draft him, especially if you're thinking long-term. But right now, today, he's not 100% on his knee. He comes back a round later, 2 rounds later, and keeps asking for more information. And he leaves again, and I keep giving him some more information. I turn to my head athletic trainer and says, does AJ realize that unless there's reappearing ink on this piece of paper, I told him everything I knew the first time. I don't have any independent recollection of this guy. We saw 330 guys. I just have what I had here. So we joked about it a little bit. Then we drafted Cromartie, right? And then, believe it or not, Marcus McNeil was on our board as a potential first rounder. And Marcus McNeil kept slipping. And this was the most eventful draft we've ever had. AJ Smith comes over. What about Marcus McNeil? I'm like, okay, here he is. He had a back issue. Here's the thing. He's fine to play today. Is there some risk? There is, but there's no, there's a rehab issue on his back, et cetera. There's a whole nother story on his neck that we've talked about on the podcast in the future. But in any case, we draft him in the second round, and the room is high-fiving each other because they think they got 2 first-round picks, right? Cromartie fell to him, and they would have been happy with McNeil in the first round. And AJ Smith, may he rest in peace, comes, him, cowboy, gunslinger type personality, et cetera. Man, a few words. He saunters up to the kids' table to James Collins' eye in the corner. And since we drafted 2 medical guys, right, he goes, well, men, it's all on you now. This is a true story. Story. And you know what I said to AJ? I had a great relationship with him. I loved AJ. I said back to him, I said, AJ, I understand, or I actually said coach. Everyone says coach, right? Coach, I understand if either one of these guys doesn't make it, I'm fired. But if they both do I get a raise? And he just looked at me and chuckled and walked away. I love AJ Smith. But yeah, so that was one of our, some drafts, speak when spoken to, stay in the corner. They never came to the kids' table, right? It depends.
Let me ask you a question. So medical grades, I've never really asked how they're made. How do you come up with is it a number? Is it a letter? What is it, and how do you come up with it?
It's changed over time. We had a letter grade system at one point in time. We had a number system. And then I tried to make it even fancier. Like a 5 is a fail, i.e., he just came off surgery. He's a 5 today, but then he could become a 3, which is passable, but with some long-term history. I try to make it complicated. Sometimes the scouts didn't like it. So each team is a little bit different. Gotcha. It can be a numerical grade. It can be simple as A, B, C, B plus, B minus, etc. But let me tell you something. In the room there, unless there's some other compelling force, no one really cares until you get to the D plus, C minus range, right? A B plus and a B, nobody cares. An A minus and a B plus, nobody cared, right? You're drafting the player because there's so much other risk involved. But it depends. And we would try and come up with a system that the GM would like and the scouts would understand and whatever. And, the famous red dots on the magnets or the red M's for medical. And of course, we'd meet and talk about it. But everyone's grading system is a little different, just like everyone's scouting system is a little different in what you value. This guy's arms aren't long enough. We cannot take him at left tackle, period. Or his hand size or his this. Everyone has their own idiosyncrasies. And in some ways, medicine too. And so it's really a discussion. And what I always did was have a discussion of what I'm thinking so they would understand it rather than here's the pure grade, go with it. This is where it works. This is where it doesn't work, etc. And be honest about what's going on. But Sure. So what did you think? So we talked about OTAs being, medical reporting season, and any surprises so far? I mean, in OTAs, as he seen medically?
It's actually, I used to have a running joke with people. This is the season for everybody's head of schedule. The reporting's interesting. It's very rare that the guy's behind a little bit. When does it ever happen? It's OTAs are your t-shirts on shorts. When you were with the Chargers, as you know, OTAs started earlier. They're a little bit more intense. Now it's kind of a country club atmosphere. There's very little that gets done that's high charged. It's not. But the bottom line is they are still important because you need to get the guys practice time, but there's just not a lot of practice time anymore because of the CBA. But yeah, in terms of injury stuff, I don't put a whole lot of stock in it, but it is kind of cool though. If a guy's back earlier than they expected to be on the field, at least you get a ballpark idea of where this situation's headed. But as I warn people with, I'll give you an example. Javonte Williams last year, come back from multi-ligament injury. I'm like, people are saying, oh, wow, he's doing so great in training camp. Or he's back early. I'm like, guys, he's coming back from a major knee injury. This guy's a running back. He's not an offensive lineman. Let's slow our roll a little bit, thinking that he's going to be what he was before the injury. I didn't believe it he was, and he would. I knew he wouldn't be. Good story, though. He came back. He played early in the season, but he wasn't the same. So I don't want to say I take the stuff of the offseason as a grain of salt, but I base my information and evaluation on over 2 decades of injury reporting and analysis. We're talking to guys like yourself who helped me kind of grow my network and to understand what I'm looking at, because a lot of the stuff is very positive and that's fine, but it's not. Look, we're in May now. We're not in August. That's the problem with injury reporting and information that comes out this early.
Yeah, you're right, because you got to also know the reporting world. Who's sourcing the information? Yeah. It's the team spreading optimism or the agent spreading optimism.
Right.
It's like spring training. Hope springs eternal. And I love how a guy's coming off an ACL. Oh, look, he's running. Okay, but it's cutting and deceleration. That's the key, right? And we might have to amend what we've been saying at Sports Injury Central, Adam. We've been saying a lot that we're the only source of injury analysis. Everyone else does injury reporting. We might have to amend it, except for Adam Caplan. There's some injury analysis going on there from when stuff comes from you. But right, everyone else is just reporting what someone told them. We're looking with our own eyes at.
Like I remember, gosh, were you with the Chargers with Ryan Matthews, the running back?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Who really good player, but unfortunately a lot of injuries in his career.
But let me say something about Ryan Matthews. You know, my saying for Ryan Matthews is
No.
You don't want to be the coach that follows John Wooden. You want to be the coach that follows the coach that followed John Wooden. Ryan Matthews was a great running back, but he had a too high of a hurdle following LT, LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh, that too. Yeah, true.
The city would have loved him, right? But
True.
and he played through injuries. He was tough. I love Ryan Matthews, but he just when you follow LT, that's just tough. But anyways, let's hear your story.
No, what it was is he was recovering from some injury in the offseason. I just remember doing it when I was at ESPN. I had an update on him. I remember our news desk like questioning how I'm like in the offseason, I'm so definitive. I don't know if I don't remember it being actually positive, the information I had. It was just updating it, as we're supposed to do. And I was just like, whatever it was not positive early in the off season, and they were kind of questioning how I would be able to say this early in the off season. Well, you've got good sourcing, but I put a little bit of analysis in it because I know enough. I'm one of the few people, I'm a doctor, who knows enough about injuries, specific injuries, certain ones I know better than others, where I go, it's going to take a little bit longer than they first thought to come back. That's all. It's just
and for just to put it on the record, all your sources on Ryan Matthews were not me. I didn't know
you then. No, I didn't know you then. No.
There was never any HIPAA leaks from us.
No, as a matter of fact,
people say all the time, "Oh, you just talk to the other team doctors or athletic trainers and get your information." Well, first of all, we do it in game when they're still on the sideline. Second of all, if I asked them, they would be insulted that I asked them. I mean, I will admit I talked to a handful of people this off season. Different athletic trainers had athletic trainers around and some team doctors. But it would be It's like another reporting asking you, Adam, who's your source? You just wouldn't do that, right?
No,
you just wouldn't do that. And if you did that, they would never take your next call. These docs are athletic trainers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's with information, because I'm so interested with injuries and recovery, and like, for instance, I'm a fairly competitive tennis player. I have a deltoid strain. I had never had a shoulder injury in my life. And I didn't quite realize how connected it is to the rotator cuff. Again, I'm not like you, so I wasn't raised on injuries as a kid. So I had to research it and ask. I had to ask medical people that I'm pretty friendly with, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know this. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know the source of it. It's fascinating when you check in with certain people, what you find out on injuries. And that was the first thing. Going back to 2000, my first year, when I didn't know anything about injuries back then. We would just get the information, and I'm like, okay, what does this mean? I didn't know, man. That was the problem. I could not. You talk about analysis. This is why I'm bringing it up. I couldn't really analyze injuries because I didn't know. I didn't know back in 2000. I would say it wasn't until 04, 05 when I could say, okay, this MCL sprain, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. That position, if it was a center, he's back in 2. Because they're not asked to do the things that a running back is. You mentioned earlier, running, cutting, starting, stopping. I didn't know that players could come back depending on the position earlier. That I'm sure you would do that when you would tell North Turner, whoever your head coach was, oh, you know what? We could get this guy back earlier. I guess it would depend on the position and the injury, but that's stuff I didn't know when I first started working. And then over a series of years, I was like, okay, I know this injury. We're gonna have this. I don't need to call a doctor on this one. I think I kind of know how long this is going to take. If I know if I know the type of injury it is.
Yeah, and I would argue that, Adam, that 2 running backs might not be the same. 2 quarterbacks might not be the same.
Sure.
For example, the famous analogy I'll give you is Patrick Mahomes when he played the Jaguars 2 seasons ago with that high ankle sprain that he left the game for, didn't come back to the second half. In game, we're saying that's a mild high ankle and he'll come back. Yep. Then after the game, rap sheet, great job. The next day or 2 days later says he's got a high ankle. And everyone, oh, he's done. He's not playing. I'm like, no. He's going to play. He's going to play differently because of how he can make off-platform throws, right? If it's a traditional guy that needs to plant back foot, 3-step drop ball out kind of thing, it's different. He is Mr. Off-platform, and he obviously played, and they beat the Eagles, your Eagles, in the Super Bowl that year.
By the way, so high ankle sprain, maybe let's say 04, 05 was the first time I heard of it, right? Okay. Because talking to coaches and front office people, they're like, high ankle sprain. What is what? It was never called that, a bad ankle sprain, obviously depending where it was. we didn't quite realize tearing ligaments and so forth, whatever's involved in it. So I remember first time I had a pretty good medical source on the first time I was ever given, it's a mild high ankle. I'm like, what in the world is a mild high ankle? And he goes, he'll be back in 2 weeks. It was just the person I spoke.
There's different degrees and levels and different types of players. That's
right. And I just said, I was like blown away. You could actually have a mild high ankle, but a high ankle is a real high ankle sprain, depending on severity, could be 3 months. Like if you got a really bad one,
no question, and it could be surgery.
Like that's a really bad injury, man. You're tearing ligaments, you're stretching them. So I didn't know that. Again, this is when you first started covering injuries, man. And I couldn't imagine being a doctor, because moving forward here, there's so many type of surgeries now. There's a tightrope surgery, which I didn't get familiar with until Tua had it, and of the other Alabama players. I'm like, how the hell are they coming back from ankle surgery in 3 weeks or 4 weeks? Like, how's this possible? Like, again, all the new medical procedures. It's so interesting about your profession, how much has changed to get athletes back, not just NFL players, but athletes in general. And it's so fascinating, depending on the sport, because I know you cover not just football, you cover the other sports. I know the fans love to ask you on Twitter or X, okay, when is Embiid going to come back from his latest injury, or when is this player going to come back? It's fascinating to see what people want to know.
Well, yeah, and okay, you talk basketball, right? I mean, yesterday, Game 7, the Knicks, Anunoby and Josh Hart playing through, but we're like, I'm not sure that they're going to be 100% or play that well, because the abdominal and the hamstring are pretty tough for an NBA player to play through, and it wasn't surprising that the Pacers prevailed. So, when does Embiid come back at 70% or come back at 95 or 100%, right? I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. And of course, I'm not looking at the MRIs. I'm just trying to give your best analysis. But I'll tell you something, Adam, just like there are good coaches and bad coaches and good GMs and bad GMs, or better GMs and worse GMs, better reporters and less whatever, there is a difference in team doctors. I'm not saying me. Here's my favorite question. Name the only job in the NFL on a Sunday that requires 0 previous football experience.
Name a job on Sunday.
The only one. There's only one.
When you say Sunday. Football, you mean football experience? Football experience.
No previous football experience required.
That's an open-ended. I have no idea. I don't know where you're going here.
It's not a reporter. It can't be.
No, but obviously you're talking about medical. But how when you say football or like you're saying football
experience. Football experience.
I don't know, but I'm
interested to hear
your answer. Go ahead.
The team doctor.
Well, I knew you were going to say that, but here's my issue with that, because we were just talking about this in passing. Sure, you don't need to know football, but you do in a way with an asterisk. And I learned this from so many medical people. This is how I learned it. Certain positions can come back sooner than other. Now, but you're talking about on Sunday, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about during the week. Yeah, you need it now. Let me ask you this question on your point though. Let's say the guy, you do a Lockman test, right? And you could explain what that is. So you're giving the stress test on the guy's knee to see if there's any loose ligaments, and the knee's intact. You get the MRI that night, and it looks like the guy's got a PCL sprain, but it's a guard. So you should. I learned this the hard way. Some docs will tell me, "Hey, by position, I could tell you how long this guy. If it's a grade 1, this guy's not a receiver. This guy could be back in 2 weeks." Wouldn't you?
There's
think
no
you would
question.
Have to know that?
Well, my point is this. Well, if you don't have any previous football experience, how do you know that? It's not taught in the textbooks.
You'd have to have it. Yeah, you'd have to have it.
Well, that's what I mean. So, and I'm not being critical of any doctors. I'm just saying what we as team physicians do with our feet on the grass are a lot different than our feet on the tile. Every doctor in the NFL is a great doctor in their own right, in the OR, in their clinics. They've reached a level of success in their life. But it's just different what you do with your feet on the grass. In regular life, we're not asked to give rib block injections to people with rib fractures, intercostal nerve blocks. but as an NFL team physician, you are, right? And you're asked to do different things that are outside the box. That was my only point. I am not
right, because honestly,
I am not at all critical. And that speaks to, as a doctor, how do you know the difference between a guard and this if you haven't had any football experience and haven't thought about
that's
this?
what I was going to get to, because that to me would be very hard. Well, let me ask you this question. So I know a lot about your career, but I don't. How did you like? Who did you work for other teams other than the Chargers?
Well, prior to coming to San Diego, I did cup of coffee residency stuff with the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
I was the seasonal assistant as a fellow for the Minnesota Vikings, and I covered a lot of high school football and college football and other football to get to know football better, and a lot of stuff. And so that left me in a good position when I became an assistant, and I was given the job in season really as an interim to convert it into permanent because I had some football knowledge. As a matter of fact, this is so funny. It is. I haven't done high school football coverage in a while now in San Diego because I've got little kids and whatever. But yesterday, my kids are starting at a new middle school this next fall, and I'm at some middle school activity out on the playground, and some guy comes up to me and says hello to me, Dr. Chow. And it turns out he was a coach at one of the high schools I worked at, and he's now the principal at that middle school. So now my wife thinks I'm a hero. We have an in with the principal.
Nice.
But I covered a lot of sports over time.
But how did you learn, though? Here's my question. How did you learn, okay, I think this guy could come back. We can get this guy back earlier than we first saw, or whatever. You like, how do you get that feel for, obviously that the testing will show you, but I know talking to doctors, they have this intuitive feel. You know what?
Well,
Hey,
Adam, you have an intuitive feel of who's telling you the truth and which source is reliable and not. You have that intuitive feel. You have that intuitive and educational feel to figure out that this MCL is different on the guard than the running back or the wide receiver. And it's about education. Look, what I do now, a lot of this film stuff, it's not a trick. Nobody taught me. I just looked at guys on the field, on the sideline the next day after an MRI, and I had half an hour to kill before meeting with the GM on Mondays. Everyone in the building's looking at film, so I started looking at film. I don't know why, I don't know, but there I knew the answer to the question. I would get shown the film. Now I don't know the answer to the question, but I get the film, so I studied it for 17 years, right? And the school of hard knocks, just like why injuries. So that's kind of what it is. It's intellectual curiosity, being able to understand, it's instead of being fed a fish, teaching a man how to fish. If you know how to fish, you can catch more fish. If you know what's happening in medicine and can look at the football side, you can synthesize new and better ideas and get better and better at your craft. And I always looked at it as a craft, just like you do, obviously, and the pride that you take in what you do. All right. So always fun to talk to you. And my interviews and podcasts always go better when someone like you leads it, because you ask better questions than I do.
I'm fascinated.
I'm not a professional at it, so I love it. But I got to ask you one question.
Sure.
You're Mr. Everything, and especially in Philadelphia. I still get asked this. Was Jalen Hurts injured last year, or was he not? What happened there?
He was. He had a knee injury. I mean, I don't know exactly what it was, but in fact, I remember when he said he's pretty emphatic about it. I don't have the transcript in front of me. He talked about his bang. You guys you don't understand what it's like to play with a banged up knee. I'm paraphrasing. It was almost like that. That was the line that he gave, because he hurt his knee in the Rams game in LA at SoFi. It was one of those games. I think it was somewhere around that week, and there's no way to know how it impacted him. We know he will run, but you can't get in the guy's head and see what he was dealing with. But it sure seemed to me that he was, based on what I'd heard, in fact, he said it. Again, he put a quote out there that he was doing the backup knee. So don't know exactly what it was, but the fact of the matter is it's hard, because it's hard no matter what position it is, particularly if you're a guy that needs to move. If you're Phillip Rivers and your knee's not ACL It's on an ACL. We don't need to get into that story, which is amazing that you live. But if a guy doesn't have to run very much, it's like I've always said this about Kirk Cousins. Other than Achilles, I mean, he's played with some injuries. He's fine. He could play through it. But it was his Achilles. You can't play through that because if you're not a running quarterback, and you could throw in place. You could get away with it. We saw many quarterbacks do it over the years. Can't do it. You can't say it for every quarterback, but you can get away with it.
Absolutely. All right. What else do you want to talk about or mention before you wrap here? All your different projects and different things. Adam Caplan, the OG, the original injury guy. I always appreciate having you on. What else? Tell people where you're at or all your Eagle stuff and all the
I just follow me on X, it's called now, at Caplan NFL, CAPLAN NFL. So I'll have some career stuff coming up, announcements probably next couple of months, which I'm pretty excited about. And the one thing I can talk about absolutely is Inside the Birds. We're now in year 7, I think, of our company. Myself and Jeff Mosher's my partner. We started it. It was actually 7 years ago in spring of 18. And we're an insider podcast, injuries, lineup stuff, you name it. We go inside the Eagles, obviously one of the premier teams in the National Football League, and check us out on X at Inside Birds. And we talk. In fact, our series that we're doing now, Doc, is really interesting. We're going over their entire schedule. We give you insider notes on every team that the Eagles are playing on their schedule, because I cover all 32 teams, not just one. So that helps. And I'm constant contact with the clubs and how they feel about their team. And obviously we just had the draft and schedule finally came out. By the way, when you first started work for the Chargers, weren't they out well before the draft? Weren't they out before the draft schedules? I thought they were.
I don't really remember when they came out. I have something funny on the draft. Everyone makes a big deal about the schedules and everything. Yeah. But like, do people not realize, and I know you know this, the opponents are already known. It's just what date you're playing them. I mean, it's like this is revelation. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is going to play in San Francisco. All that's revealed. It's on Monday night at ESPN. The Jets were always traveling to San Francisco. That's been known for a long time. So I take some humor in this schedule.
I know it's funny, but people get excited over what, like the Jets have 6 primetime games, so it's exciting. But look, OTA season is kind of mundane. We know that the mandatory camp's next month. Then we got 5-6 weeks off until training camp's open. It's always exciting. I look forward to going on my training camp tour, which should be pretty long. And by the way, the Chargers moving to LA, their headquarters now near LAX is interesting, man. A lot of teams.
It's supposed to be ready. It's supposed to be ready.
Yep. Looking forward to it. I'll be there.
All right. Thank you, Adam Caplan, the OG. Thanks for taking the time. Kept you a lot longer than the 15 minutes. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
And we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with part 2 of the Sports Injury Central Pro Football Doc podcast. All right. Welcome back to part 2 of the Sports Injury Central Pro Football Doc podcast on Believe. Thanks to Adam Caplan. Adam's been super nice to me over the years at the Super Bowl Radio Rows. He's become a very good friend. And Taylor, you got some new digs, I see. Did you come into some new money recently?
Yes, you helped me out with a little bit of the Pacers plus money ticket, almost $950, I believe it was. Yes, got the fiance on it. Big series, went all the way to Game 7. Doc, there was a reason why we were leaning the Pacers, right, due to the Knicks issues.
Yeah, well, I told some friends about it, and that's what we thought. They're like, "Why did you tell me plus 950?" I'm like, "I didn't bet myself." It's like, "Why'd you like? I don't bet. I'm in California. I didn't bet myself." But plus 950 when the Knicks were up 2-0, when we knew Anunoby was not really coming back. He did come back for a token Game 7, and Josh Hart was big. Schefter, is awesome. He does some basketball stuff now too. He was like maybe a Willis Reed moment with Hart and Anunoby playing. I was like, yeah, but if they put up props, you could take their unders. But in any case, they're not going to be 100%. And they kind of got boat raced by the Pacers. Good for the Pacers, but even in basketball, injuries do matter. I don't pretend to be watching every minute of basketball, but here's my question to you. You said your fiance bet it. You got her into the betting side. is that plus 950 going to ultimately save you money or cost you money?
With her, if she has money, that means that's the spend money. That's not money to put away or save. So we have extra money to spend now. That's how
a new place, some new furniture. Anyways.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. What else we got this week here, Taylor?
So just do the NBA real quick. We're down to the final 4 teams. Probably the biggest issue for the East side is Kristaps Porzingis with that calf injury that was similar to Giannis. We posted multiple Giannis. We posted multiple stuff on Six Score. What are your thoughts of him going into the next series and farther if they get advanced?
Well, I think he's a different player than others with the calf. He's long enough and tall enough and lean enough to do something with his calf even being injured. But matchup wise, I don't know how much he's needed this series, right? Yeah. So, I think they'll play it game by game. Porzingis can indeed come back. He won't necessarily be 100%, but I think it's a favorable matchup. And as we talked about with Adam Caplan, Porzingis is one of those guys who could probably do better with a calf injury than let's say,
Well, Dame Lillard, right? Dame Lillard had the calf. He's a cutter, right?
Other than Dame Miller, it's just a different type of player. He's long enough to be effective and skilled enough without. I mean, he's not known for quick bursts and what have you and change of directions. He's effective, so that makes it a little easier for him to come back.
So on the west side, Doc, we had Luka. So someone posted a pic from a graphic on the playoffs. He's dealing with a right knee sprain, left knee soreness, back soreness, and left Achilles soreness. All injuries that he's either suffered in the playoffs or gone into the playoffs with. The knee injury, he did say that it's not going to get any better. There's not much time in between each games, right? So it's not going to get any better until after the playoffs. So his points, props wise, he's going under. Do we expect him to still play through these issues, right?
Well, I got to give Luka credit. In the history that we followed him with injuries, he's always been a quick return. But has that return been 100%? Right? He plays through, but he's not at 100%, and I don't see him at 100%. Or his mate down low. What's his name?
Max Kleber with AC joint sprain.
Yeah. Max Kleber with a even AC joint sprain. I think that's going to affect him still going forward because in general, and I'm not calling NBA players soft, they don't take injections to play in games because you'd have to do it 3-4 times a week or more, whereas football players do. So Kleber still might be a little bit before he comes back on his shoulder.
All right. So, we've had 3 straight guaranteed weekends at our 6-pick service, Doc. We've done a really good job. We've done all sports. So we've done a lot of picks every week. We're going to do another one this week. So everybody keep in tune. Watch for that at sixscore.com. Next thing
I just feed the injury information and you guys work the algorithm magic.
Yes. Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about, Doc. So Joe Burrow, you've been talking about this for years, but Joe Burrow mentioned that with the 18 games potentially happening, 2 buys would be a good trade-off. And you've been saying this for years. What are your thoughts on that and his wrist as well?
He's stealing my song. No, I mean, I've been saying that for a long time. I was, even going back to talking to the Princess of Darkness, Amy,
Amy Trask.
Amy Trask about it. She says, well, it's up to TV and what TV likes. But then a light bulb hit me when they added 17 and didn't add a bye week. I was like, oh, they're just waiting for 18 to add the second bye week, right? And look, I get the bye week, 2 bye weeks didn't work in the 90s, but back then it was about when's my team playing? When's my team playing? Nowadays, it's like when Monday Night's Football is on, you just turn the TV on. You don't necessarily know who's playing. When Thursday Night Football is on, you turn the TV on. It's not the same as before the way it's followed with gambling, but also with fantasy and fandom and so forth. So I think it could support it and it would add additional revenue. So then you'd have 20 weeks of TV big time revenue for the regular season instead of 18, right? And everyone shares in that, including the players. And it's better for health, right? To have that. And you just creep down on your preseason games, et cetera. And I've also said this, the NFL has now creeped into Wednesday with Christmas, right? Yeah. If you had 2 bye weeks, you could schedule teams coming off a bye to play on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's smart.
And, you could own Wednesdays too, but that's a whole nother story. But so I think it's going to happen. It's a matter of when, not if. And it's probably going to be with the 18 games is my guess. And it'll become 20, and then somehow they'll change the schedule and they'll go all the way through President's Day and have President's Day football or something, the Super Bowl or something, right?
So I know you mentioned on with Caplan about like the schedule release, not a big deal, but social media, all the teams are competing with their videos to see. Chargers have won the last 2 years, I will say, with their schedule release video. JJ Watt mentioned recently on Twitter what he looks for as a player, and you've mentioned this at what you've looked for. So there's he looks for the first game date, the bye week, a Thursday night game, any other games that may disrupt routine, recovery, international, Monday Night Football, etc., and then possible weather games. Does that in line with what you've dealt with in your time in NFL?
Yeah, well, first of all, as far as the social media memes and stuff, I think it's great. It's great for the NFL. Have a little fun, poke a little fun, the whole deal. As far as the Charger one, I mean, I'm so old, I'm not sure I understand all the Charger references in their social media memes, but apparently they win, so good on them. As far as what to look for, see, this is what makes JJ Watt great. Look at what he said. He looks for the first game, so he knows when to be ready. The bye week, so he knows how to deal with his body. The Thursday game, whatever. This is what makes JJ international games, travel routine, interruption. That's because it's JJ Watt. That's what makes him great. I would say, look, in my times, first of all, I think the schedule release is so overdone. It's great for the NFL. It's great for fans. Okay. But all the opponents are known. It's just what date. So, like, I saw something recently where they go, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in trouble. They don't have any divisional games until week 11 or something like that. Well, I don't know. The Pittsburgh Steelers may be in a great shape. If Burrow gets hurt again, Lamar Jackson gets hurt again, and, other people get hurt again, Deshaun Watson gets hurt again, and they're without them when they play in late season, they're pretty golden, right? So it really depends. Weather games, I get. Here's the thing. Most players in my mind, the first thing they used to look at was prime time games. When do we get Sunday night, Monday, Thursday? Bye weeks, yes. Wives and girlfriends looked at Christmas and Thanksgiving. Are you guys gone for then? And would look at the bye week. Let me tell you, as a team physician, I would look at how many Friday departure games. Because remember, I worked for a living Monday through Friday, and I would go to the Chargers, whatever. And if we're leaving Friday morning for an East Coast trip, that changes my schedule. So I would look at East Coast trips and when we would leave town. And once again, the Chargers, now in LA, top the list for most miles flown for the coming season, right? And it's usually the Chargers, the Seahawks. This year, the Dolphins are up there a little bit. Remember, the NFL is a very Northeast-centric league. So why not the Rams? Well, the difference is the Rams have San Francisco, Arizona, and the Seahawks, where the Chargers have Vegas. Denver gets a little further, but KC. So they're always a little bit more than the Rams. Right? They've got a little more just within their division. It's not much. And, of course, it depends on, do you play the AFC East or the NFC East and locations. But the Chargers, the Seahawks, sometimes the Rams, sometimes San Francisco, the West Coast teams, the occasional Miami down in the corner there, they're always going to lead in traveling. Of course, if you have an international game, then that puts you over the top as well. But I used to look for when I would have to leave on 3-day trips as my big thing. And then I would look at Thursday night games because then that upsets your schedule. So I guess I'm like JJ Watt. What upsets the schedule is
you're an athlete too, Doc. Yes.
No, not at all. Not at all.
One video I saw that we looked at on Twitter recently was you saw the Sean McVay remembering all the key questions on that interview he had. I remember one thing he did before, and you said the same exact thing you're going to say now. You're going to say, like, everybody can do this, right? Or he's not that special, right? What are your thoughts?
I'm not questioning Sean McVay's boy genius greatness at all, but I think fans would be surprised at how many other people can do this. Okay, let me give you some analogies, Taylor. Number one is what Tony Romo did for CBS early in his career, predicting plays. Let me tell you something. Most quarterbacks, I think, could with some study. Okay. I probably should have Billy Volek on. Many times when Phillip Rivers, he'd give me the play. What's the play call? He'd give it to me. And then he realized I didn't know what the frick I was talking about. So he could, read off the play and I wouldn't know. He'd say, it's a pass and it's going to go to Gates because he sees the coverage already, or this is what it, and he'd dumb it down for me. Now, of course, he knew the play calls there, but when you study and you do the media stuff, Tom Brady will be able to do that as well if he chooses to, if the network lets him do it. More quarterbacks than you think. But like I always said, the great skill of a quarterback is to know the play, know your formation, look at the coverage, and realize what most likely is open. Yeah, you got to read it to confirm it. Right. But most great quarterbacks, if you ask them, before the snap of the ball, they know where they're likely going with the ball. Now they check and make sure, right? They don't blindly go there. They check and make sure they got it right before they go there. So I don't think I love what Tony Romo did and does, but I don't think it's that special when you get down to it. And I'd say the same with Sean McVay. I remember when I was little, and do you even know who Hank Stram was?
I don't. I can't say I do.
Old-time football coach. Mm-hmm. He used to, on the radio, and I would listen sometimes in the car when the family is going somewhere on the radio, the broadcast, and he'd predict the next play is going to be this, and it would be that play. And he'd look it up. Maybe he did it. And Sean McVay, think of it this way. I cannot remember the last time I played golf, much less what I shot or what I hit on a certain hole.
What hole? Yeah.
Maybe I played Ponte Vedra, the 17th, the Island Green, and I'll never forget that one because, oh my gosh, I got lucky. Don't ask me what I hit. Okay, I got lucky and birdied that hole. I didn't lose the ball. Of course, I'll remember that. But I can't tell you now. A really good golfer will say, "Oh, well, that par 16 at Torrey Pines, I remember nutting up a 3-wood and the hole was front right and avoided the green." Like they give you all the stuff. Every pro golfer can do that. More head coaches than you think can do what Sean McVay did there, right? Is Sean McVay extra good at doing it? Probably. Am I discounting what he does? No, I'm just saying these coaches are there for a reason. And they're all a little bit savants and crazy like that kind of thing.
What Volek reminds me, I believe you're friends with our Chase Daniel. He's been doing a great job of breaking down plays on Twitter right now, or X, and that reminds me of the same thing. This is a backup quarterback that was there for years that just is soaking up.
Dan Orlovsky.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Right? Yeah. That's what I say. How did Chase Daniel and Orlovsky stay in the league and Billy Volek? They were smart, right? And they absorbed the information. They could read defenses and so forth. They could be help in the quarterback room, etc. And we can try and get Chase Daniels on. We tried to get Dan on before. He's so busy though. He's texting back, "Let's do it." And I think no offense, it's not negative to Orlovsky. Love him. I remember being Twitter pals with him and texting him and saying, "Dude, you're going to make it big time. Your analysis is good."
He's doing a great job. Yeah.
He had to his credit, he always responds and whatever, but book a time. Oh, he has to do this show and this show. And so we should probably reach out again and figure it out in the off season when he has a little more free time and try and get him on too.
No, absolutely. So leading into golf, Doc, I do need your breakdown of what happened at the Valhalla golf course this weekend with usually clean cut, like focused Scotty Scheffler. He had a little incident outside. Break that down for me, exactly what happened.
I don't know. I wasn't there, but all I would say is this. There's no way when Scotty Scheffler rolled up and there was all this traffic that he knew someone had died. So he didn't know what was going on. He sees a traffic situation. I don't know. He's told he's got the car credential and he's got the credential in his hand. He can go around. and he starts to do it. Look, I've seen the video. You've seen the video.
Yep.
It's dark. Guys with yellow reflector jackets on. Do you really? Okay, on the back, it did say police, but when you're looking at him, is it police or a traffic guy? I don't know, right? So I could see it's dark. I could see the misunderstanding. What I want to know is what led the police officer to, quote, attach him to the car. That's just the question. Maybe there was a good reason. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That came from ES reporter Jeff
Darlington.
And then apparently he got hauled out of the car door ripped open and handcuffed. How about, can they hold your hands up? Let me see your ID. What were you doing? Like, how about a little conversation? I don't know. We'll see what happens in the end. But here's my biggest takeaway from this, and we're jumping ahead.
Yes.
My beast of the week. Look, I don't know Scotty Scheffler. Look, we've done Tigers coverage and injuries and Bryson DeChambeau. I think Bryson DeChambeau is great. We gave a golf ball to a kid. Some adult took it, and he came back and now give it back to the kid. He might have jumped the rope if the guy didn't. The guy was smart to give it back to the kid. Good on Bryson DeChambeau. But are you kidding me, Scotty Scheffler? I don't care how law-abiding and how calm and everything you are. You get hauled out of your car, put in handcuffs. You're in this dark, in this situation, and you see Jeff Darlington, and you calmly turn to him and say, "Can you please help me?" Not
no panic.
Out of here. Whoa, help, man. What do you do? Like screaming, like he's just like matter of factly, like, "Can I please have some ice water, please?" I mean, like asking the bus boy, "When you get a chance, can you give me some more water, please?" I mean, what? I mean, this guy is the definition of calm under pressure.
Well, you heard his workouts inside the jail cell as well, Doc. Like that's how he's just strict-minded, routine-based, like focused.
Is that like Russell Wilson high knees on the airplane? No, I just kidding. No, he's cutting it short. He's got to get his workout routine in, and these guys don't show up for an 8:48 tee time at 8:30, right? I mean, that's why it was like 5:30 in the morning, and originally it was an 8:48 tee time. That's why he gets there early to stretch and do his routine, and very creature of habit. But beast of the week, Scotty Scheffler, to be in that stress situation and said, "Can you please help me?" in the calmest of voices around. That blows my mind that he just, I mean, his pulse must be like 40, and it probably was 42 beats per minute during the arrest, right? Just cool, calm, collected. So I got to give him the beast of the week just for that, for staying so cool and calm with everything.
Before we wrap this up, Doc, I do want to mention on the last podcast, we did mention Jung-Hoo Lee and his labrum injury. They are officially ruled him out for the season. That was just like you saw, that was a significant, that wasn't just a normal, right, not knowing the park, that unfortunate case for him.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's confirmed surgery. He'll be good for next year. But, of course, what we haven't figured out is how you can make that really effectively actionable, right? We knew the information ahead of time, but it is what it is. But like we said with Adam Caplan, other than Adam Caplan, we're the only place with injury analysis. We'll give Adam some cred that and thanks for coming on the podcast there. We good, or we got anything else there?
No, we got everything done, Doc. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks again to Adam Caplan, the OG. Thank you, Taylor. And Sports Injury Central goes on continuously, lots of stuff. Now, admittedly, with 4 basketball teams remaining, they all get healthier, right? The unhealthier ones get eliminated already, just like in football. But there'll still be lots of different advantages to be had there. Please go to sicscore.com or subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I'm told give us a 5-star thumbs up or whatever the cool kids do. Thanks for watching and listening. I appreciate you all.